All right, welcome to Clear Vision Wednesday. I am Claudia Mühlenweg. I'm the founder of the Natural Clear Vision Institute. So this is my Wednesday show. We go live every Wednesday. It's called Clear Vision Wednesday. It's all about vision improvement, things you need to know around your vision, your eyesight, what you can do to improve. Make sure you subscribe to this channel because we're not going to do this show forever. So subscribe. Get live access because you can answer questions or ask questions, and I will answer them during my live feed. We also go in afterwards and do our best to answer all the questions. But come live, it's the best way to get support. Many weeks I have guests. Today it's just me, and we're talking about a really important subject today. Because one thing I notice a lot with my clients is that as we get older, there's more of a fear of driving. And doesn't matter your age. I also have clients in their 30s with amblyopia, lazy eye, trouble with driving, and almost giving up driving. And driving is a huge piece of our freedom, especially if you live in the United States. It's a huge place. And without a car, we're pretty much doomed. You kind of lose a big piece of your independence when you can't drive anymore. So obviously for driving, there's a lot of things that are important, and I want to highlight on one aspect today. That's one core aspect I want to talk about today. So let's think a little bit about when we go to an eye doctor, what do they usually measure, especially when you go for glasses? They measure your so-called visual acuity on an eye chart. That is you sitting still in a chair. There's some kind of eye chart, either a physical one or a projected one, and then you're reading and you're doing it. Most of the time, they just do one eye and then the other. And you're reading these letters. That's visual acuity. How sharp can you see? We talk about 20/20. 20/40 is the legal limit for driving. So on your eye chart, that might be a line that's highlighted in red or green, but that's basically like the legal limit. If you don't have that with or without glasses, you will not be able to get a driver's license in the United States. Some states in the United States have like 20/50. But when we talk about visual acuity, it's important for sure. It's important to read the street sign, to see that there's a stop sign. But at the end of the day, what's really happening when you're driving? Unless you're stopped at a stop sign or you're a passenger in a car, things are always moving. There is movement. There is like paying attention to the periphery, left and right, to distance between cars, to noticing a car passing you, doing a turn, not killing a pedestrian or bicyclists. Those are all skills that have nothing to do with visual acuity, but a lot of these skills have to do with so-called binocular vision. It's how your two eyes work together to create depth perception. So we don't have depth perception. We don't have a sense of space, our own connection to space, and how far things are apart without so-called binocular vision. Sometimes it's called stereo vision, or we talk about fusion. And maybe you have, and a lot of times they're undetected. So maybe you have lazy eye, like squint. I used to have a squint. Maybe you already diagnosed and you know that you don't have good binocular vision, or you have no binocular vision. In other words, only one eye is always looking. Oftentimes, this can also happen with so-called monovision. Monovision can sometimes be natural. It's not that often, but where one eye is really basically able to read up close perfectly fine, and the other eye is able to see the distance sharp, and that means that you just basically just use one eye at a time. So you use, let's say, one eye for reading and the other eye for distance. This is sometimes done with LASIK surgery, with cataract lens replacement surgery, or with contacts. So I noticed that people with monovision correction, they never really use both eyes together. Yes, the other eye is open, but they really just using one eye to focus. They often have lack of binocular vision, either none or it's kind of weak. And we need to know this. So if your eye doctor doesn't test for that, a lot of places do not test for that. Make sure you test this on your own or ask your eye doctor to test your binocular vision. It's really, really, really important. And I'm going to show you in this video a couple simple ways to test it, but there's different layers of the quality of binocular vision. So the things I'm going to show you today are easy, but that's not the end all be all. So you definitely want to get a thorough exam and make sure that you have good binocular vision. So I want to have a few slides and I want to show you just so you understand this a little bit better, because our binocular vision is really fascinating. We have each eye seeing a picture, right? And they're in different spaces in the head. So each eye gives a different feed. And that turns into, if you don't have good binocular vision and your two eyes each do their own thing, you might have what's called diplopia, double vision. Double vision, true double vision, really important to know. Usually the brain is not happy about that, and it basically just says that's no good, and it turns off the feed from one eye, and that often results in amblyopia or lazy eye in children. So then the one eye's feed gets suppressed, and you're just really using one eye to see. So true double vision, you can tell because your image will be double when both eyes are open, and the second you cover one eye, the double image is gone, assuming you don't have astigmatism in that eye, but there's no doubling of things. So I met one person once in her 50s. She saw everything double. If you reached her a cup, she saw two cups. She didn't know which one was the real one. Very, very stressful. All right, so let's assume you don't have double vision, and you maybe just have a refractive error. Maybe you wear glasses or contacts, or you had LASIK surgery. So let's talk about binocular vision. And the other aspect before we get to that, sorry, is by peripheral vision. I have two other videos. I can put that in the chat. I did two videos specifically about so-called peripheral vision. That's our visual field, which is also really important for night driving. So I did two prior episodes where I went in depth into peripheral vision, which is obviously important when we are driving, because otherwise we don't see the cars passing, we don't see the pedestrian. But let's talk a little bit about binocular vision. So, and how you can quickly assess this. I am a visual learner, and I always believe a picture says more than 1,000 words. So let me basically, so binocular vision, this is a diagram seen from the top of your head. So in this case, we're looking at a little dice, and both eyes together see an image of the dice that looks three-dimensional. If both eyes are working together, there's also the right eye sees a certain angle of the cube, and then the left eye sees a different angle, and we put this together as a so-called composite that makes the image three-dimensionally looking. So that's our binocular vision. We really have to think of that two eyes being projected, like compositing the two different images into one image that has now a 3D effect. So if you don't have two working eyes that, or you have two eyes that work, but they don't work together, you will not have depth perception. And you might not know that because your brain adapts and you just don't even realize that you don't have depth perception. So that's basically the anatomy of this without going into further detail. And then, of course, the retina receives the image, and then that gets processed in the back in the head, which you see in this picture, in the brain and the visual cortex, which makes sense of like, this is a three-dimensional image of a dice. All right. So there's a few things that I like to go over, what kind of how you can quickly, let's say I have a conversation with somebody, they tell me they have monovision, and I always do these quick little tests just to see a little bit of a starting point. So one thing, we call this the finger gate. You use two fingers, and you guys can do that right now when you're watching. So it doesn't matter the exact distance. One finger is a little closer to you. The other one is a little further away. From the front, it looks like that. So they're kind of in line with your nose. Both eyes are open. And now when you look at what we call diverging, when you look at the finger that's further away from you, you will see something like this. If you have two working eyes, you will see the finger that's further away sharp, and then you will see two pictures of the front finger. So it's kind of like, we call this finger gate, not because it's like Watergate, but because it's a little gate. Your two front fingers make this little gate through which you see the back finger. And you might have one of the, either you might not see two fingers in the front. That means both eyes are not really working together or not looking, or maybe one finger is more faint. That could be from an eye that has weaker vision, so that they don't look the same as in this kind of Photoshop demonstration. But if you see two fingers, you're on the right track. That means that both of your eyes are looking of the finger that you are not looking at, in this case, the front finger. So if we do the other way around, you see me here crossing my eyes. Now I'm looking what we would call converging. Your eyes are kind of crossing a little bit. I'm looking at the front finger, and that will look like this. You will now see the front finger sharp because that's what you're focusing on. And you will see two slightly blurry fingers of the rear finger, of the finger that's further away, that will also make this kind of gate, right? So that's what you should be seeing when both of your eyes are working together. And I had many, many clients when they first did this, maybe one of the two, they would see a doubling of the finger they were not looking at, but in the other scenario, they weren't. Or sometimes people would only see one finger of each. They wouldn't see that doubling. And that is a case of lacking binocular vision or really weak and underdeveloped binocular vision. And this is, again, just a simple test that doesn't go into all the depth and all the different layers of depth perception. Another one that I like to teach because it's kind of fun, we call it the hot dog. And basically you have two fingers. You can touch the two fingers. They're not touching your nose. It looks like this in the photo, but they are kind of in front of your face, a few inches in front of your nose. And if you are looking beyond the fingers into the distance, you will see something like this. It looks like a little floating sausage, a wiener, a frankfurt, or whatever you want to call it, a hot dog, depending on the country. And if my fingers were touching, it would look like a sausage link. In other words, it would touch the fingers. And if you now do what we just talked about earlier, where you cross your eyes, so you converge, now I'm crossing my eyes in front of the fingers, between my eyes and the fingers, I'm kind of crossing my eyes. You see the same thing, but a little bit sharper because your eyes are now focusing on the near point. So it's the same. And depending on how far away your fingers are from each other, how far away the fingers or your hands are from your face, that little floating sausage will either be bigger or smaller, right? So there is a direct correlation to distance, to the eyes, and how far your fingers are away from each other. And if you move your index fingers too far away from each other, there will not be a composite image and you will lose that hot dog. So that is basically a way to test. There's also another one that I learned from my friend Ray Gottlieb, who was on the show a few times before, a former behavioral optometrist. He created something which I really think is super fun called the Chopstick fusion. So you either need a pair of chopsticks or you can use two pencils for this. And basically, what you would be doing, you have the two, and you have to kind of play around with the distance between these two chopsticks or pencils, but you hold them in front of you. You can tilt them down a little bit so they're not exactly vertical. And then you find a focal point, could be a foot, not a foot, like a meter or 3 feet, basically a little bit away from you. It doesn't have to be super, super far, but yeah, maybe a yard. That's what the word I was looking for. So look at something in the distance. I'm looking at this poster with the two chopsticks. And initially, if the distance between the two chopsticks or to your face isn't right, or you can't do it right, you might start seeing 4 chopsticks. That is a sign that your eyes are both eyes are looking, both eyes are participating, but they're not quite aligned yet. Or the distance between the chopsticks isn't right because there's all a correlation to your eyes. The distance between your eyes, the distance of the chopsticks to your eyes, all these factors play into the role. But the goal is basically to see 3 chopsticks. And it will look like, obviously I'm taking a photo of this, it will look like what I call the fake one, which is kind of the composite that the two eyes make together, will look like it kind of sticks out and it becomes a little bit longer. And when you move your focal point further and further out, it can look like a really, 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 really long chopstick. So it kind of is a way to improve your depth perception on a way deeper level than like the hot dog or the finger gate or even the fusion circles that we use in our practice or other techniques could do. The chopstick is fun. It's a great little tool that you can use at any time. You have 2 chopsticks and you want that middle one to kind of start growing and almost like touching the focal point that you're looking at. So let's say you're looking at a lamp or something, and the idea is that when you relax and you have that diverged gaze just right, it looks like the middle one is growing just like Pinocchio's nose. So it took me a while to do this. I always had trouble with diverging, but this is a way to both assess and train your depth perception. And one last one, and this gets into, you can make these really complicated. We use them in our work with our clients. And so there's many layers to all these techniques. But one thing I want to mention, it's called the Brock string. It's basically a piece of rope. You can easily use a clothesline, or you can even test this out with if you have wired headphones, with your headphone string. If you have the Apple ones, they're white, that usually sticks out. But it looks like this. It's a rope, and this is me instructing a client on this, and I was using beads. But basically, you have a rope, you hold it under your nose, and then again, you can use your headphone string, anything, a charging cable, anything you have laying around, and you hold it. You can hold it also at arm's length, so one hand can hold it. The other one, you hold it under your nose and you look down at the string. You want to tilt it down a little bit. Here's a picture of me doing it. So basically it looks like this. Again, how long this thing is right now is not that important. And when you look down at the string, if you put beads on it, you don't have to do that. You can just use the rope as it is. But basically what happens, the two eyes will create two strings because, again, each eye sees a different image. Remember the hot dog and the finger gate, right? We see two different pictures. So when you have the string, I'm using beads as an example here. So let's say you have 3 beads on the string. If you look at the first bead, the strings will cross so that it makes an X. Each eye sees a different string, so it creates kind of an X letter shape, and they will cross at the point that you're looking at. So if you have a string without beads, wherever your eyes are focusing on the string, that's when the two strings will cross. And if both eyes are healthy, if both eyes have similarly good vision, and both eyes are participating, the two strings will look about the same. If one eye has weaker vision, one string might look like a ghost string, like a shadowy, faint string. The other one might be stronger. And this is a point where we can really use it as an assessment tool to check binocular vision, but we can also use it as a training tool. It's a very powerful training tool because sometimes people tell me, I'm looking at the middle bead, but I see 2 of them. I'm like, well, then you're not looking at the middle bead. You're either looking in front of it or behind it. So it's a very good way to actually see how well your eyes can target on a specific distance. So this is too much to go into all the details how we use it, but it's a very, very powerful tool that we use in our trainings and that you can just use, again, just a cord. You don't even need beads or any attachments, just to see it. Do I see 2 strings? And if you only see one, then cover one eye and cover the other eye, and you will see how the string jumps because, again, each eye has a different position in the head, and so each eye produces a different image. And where we focus our eyes together, that's why we see one string where it crosses over, or in this case, if we have beads, we see one bead. And the last thing I want to mention today, there's tons more. We have way more. I have probably 10 other things I can show you. But this is something that was always interesting for me because I could not do these magic eye books. I had a convergent squint and I was really good at crossing my eyes, but I could not do the diverging to like look in the distance and see these kind of really cool 3D images, which are super popular on my Instagram channel. Every time I post one of these things, they look like this. So they look like some squiggly images, and it's just like you don't really see anything. So you have to divert your eyes. If you have a book with these, or you see it on my Instagram at Holistic Vision Coach, you basically, the easiest way for most people to do it is have your nose on the book or have your nose on the phone and then slowly move it away, but don't focus on the phone or the book. You basically let your gaze get soft as if you're still looking in the distance, and then eventually you will see some really cool 3D shapes pop out of this image. So it's a very, very fun way to test. But if you don't have divergent skills or you have trouble with binocular vision like I used to have, you will be like, what are you talking about? There's no images. So this is a really important skill to develop because when we don't have good binocular vision and our 2 eyes don't see well together, we don't have really great depth perception. And that's so important for driving. And of course, peripheral vision, like I mentioned, is important. And also we need to be able to track things and follow objects, so smooth pursuit movements. There's a lot of skills, but one of the things that is not talked about enough is binocular vision. And when you get your eyes checked, many eye exams, if you go to those lens crafter places, they actually don't test that. I had an eye exam done a long time ago and they never tested that. They just tested visual acuity to prescribe you glasses. So you want to make sure that this is good. And then the peripheral vision, the field is really important for night driving. But these skills will make you a confident and safe and good driver. If you have good binocular vision, you have a wide visual field, you can follow moving objects, and it doesn't make you dizzy. Because if you are a stiff driver and you only focus on how sharp you see, which is ironically what they test at the motor vehicle department to give you a license, they only test your visual acuity. You stand there, at least in California, you stand there, they have some charts hanging behind them, and they say they have 3 charts, A, B, C, and they say, okay, cover your left eye, whatever, your right eye. Now read line 5 from chart A, and then you do that, and then you do the other eye. That's all they do. And I know there are some states where they check binocular vision as well, but in many they don't. And I'm like, not that sharp vision isn't important for good driving, but if you don't have depth perception, if you don't have a good peripheral field, guys, who is going to be the better driver, right? And especially at night when we don't have great sharp vision anyway as humans, we don't have good visual acuity at night. So, but I'm always wondering about that, right? Let me know if there's any questions. I will look on YouTube right now and see if there's any questions that anybody has to ask. Yes, there will be a replay. Hi, Claire. Hi. So I will also post in the chat. We did 2 prior episodes, one on night driving and one was about opening up your peripheral field. So I don't want to repeat these messages, but both of those are really important for good driving as well. So good ability to have, be able to see at night, which is the same as your peripheral field. The peripheral field is good. And then the binocular vision we talked about today. So try out these things, the finger gate, do the hot dog, try I don't have a cable here right now. I don't want to kill my internet, but the headphone cables that we all have, a piece of clothesline or a charging cable, those white cables are really great for that, to just check it out. Do I see 2 strings? And if you don't see 2 strings, you know that only one eye is looking, okay? So in that case, I always say, look at the string and then cover one eye, cover the other eye, and notice how the string is kind of jumping so that you know the idea that it's going to be 2 strings. And sometimes people say they do it and like, oh, I see 2 strings. Oh my God, what's wrong with me? I'm like, no, good, well done. You should see 2 strings. So thank you so much for attending today. Please follow, subscribe this channel and share with other people, because we really need to understand our vision on a way better level and also know what to do to make it better. But first of all, we have to understand our physiology, our anatomy, how it all works together in the brain. So anyway, that's it. Follow me, and I see a question right now popping in. Yeah, so the 2 strings are not really clear. That also depends. I always work with clients without their glasses on. So you can test it with glasses, without glasses. Obviously, if you have a refractive error, things are blurry. The strings might also be blurry, and especially depending on where you look. Same with the gait. Remember, when you look at one finger, when I look at the rear finger, of course my front fingers are blurry because my eyes are focused on that one and not the one in the front. So with a string, there will always be parts of the string that are not sharp, because when you look somewhere in the middle of the string and it's 10 foot long, let's say, the front part will not be sharp. There's no way, because your eyes can only focus on whatever they're focusing on is sharp, and wherever they don't focus on will not be sharp. So I hope that makes sense. Anyway, this video will stay on YouTube, so thank you so much, and I will see you soon. And yes, Brini, we have a video on cataract. Simply Google on my channel. All right, you guys, now we have my little Q&A time with my Clear Vision Club members. If you're interested in the Clear Vision Club, send an email to support@naturalclearvision. We don't usually open enrollment, but if you're interested, it's my membership where we have Q&A private time after each Wednesday's live feed. It's the best time to get private access to me, and when I have guests, to get private access to my guests. So follow me, subscribe. You can also, if you're on Instagram, go to Holistic Vision Coach, check out those cool magic eye book things. I have many visual illusions and post like that because they're fun. They're really fun. It's a fun way to realize, is my vision great or not? And if it's not great, you can then take proactive steps like working with myself or another vision teacher so you can improve your vision. Because I had no divergent skill and I can now do it perfectly well. So it takes some time and it takes commitment, but you can do it. And good vision it changes everything. Because if you lose your vision, you lose a huge part of your freedom. So I can only remind you to take care of your eyes. Also go see an ophthalmologist if you haven't tested your eyes in a while. It's really important to make sure the eyes are healthy. Thank you so much. See you next Wednesday. And next Wednesday is